Goldsman here.
Roop's here.
Oakmeyer's here.
Commissioner Coleman is here.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Three, who did I not?
And good morning.
There you go. All right. All commissioners are in attendance. It is 10:15, so we'll go ahead and call the agenda meeting to order. I ask those participating on the call, please mute your phone unless you need to speak. First order of business is to approve the minutes from the September 29th agenda meeting. You all have seen those. Are there any additions or corrections? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the agenda minutes from September 29th, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Those minutes are approved 5-0. We also had closed minutes from September 29th, so you all have seen those. Are there any additions or corrections to the closed minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the closed minutes from September 29th, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those minutes are also approved 5-0. There will be a closed litigation item today at the end of agenda. But before that, we'll have one tariff and then a couple of case discussions. So before that, I'd like to welcome Regulatory Law Judge Kenneth Thayer to the Commission. Sorry. Welcome, Judge. Good to see you. So he started on Monday, so that's a good addition to our judicial staff. All right, first up in tariffs and new orders, we have just one today, file number EM 2021-0309. This is in the matter of the application of Union Electric Company, DBA Ameren, Missouri, for authorization to enter into a contract with a third party for utilization of fiber optic capacity not currently utilized for electric operations. So Ameren filed an application to lease some of its unused fiber, also known as dark fiber, to the MCC network services. This fiber is part of the company's 345 kV SU transmission line. Staff performed a review and determined that the fiber at issue would be excess capacity and that the use of the fiber by MCC to provide internet service will not impact Ameren's utility operations, and that Ameren is allowed to cancel the lease with no financial liability. So staff recommended that we approve this lease with certain conditions, including requiring Ameren to notify the Commission if the leased cable will be used as part of the SU Energy Center project. Ameren responded that it accepts staff's conditions. No other responses were received, so consistent with staff's review, I think the lease of dark fiber is not detrimental to the public interest, and frankly, I'm excited to take any opportunity we have to aid in the expansion of rural broadband with the authority that we have. So with that, I will recommend that we support this order version 1. Commissioner Root,
I support the order.
Commissioner Coleman,
I support the order.
Commissioner Holzman,
I support the order and echo your sentiment.
and Commissioner Kolkmeyer.
I'm in support, especially if this is going to help rural broadband. So, yes, I am in support.
All right, all those in favor of approving the order as drafted version 1, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
That order is approved 5-0. That concludes reports and orders. We do have some case discussions today. I think 3. One is very brief. This is file number ET 2021-0151. This is in the matter of the application of Evergy Metro, Inc., DBA Evergy Missouri Metro, and Evergy Missouri West, Inc., DBA Evergy Missouri West, for approval of transportation electrification portfolio. Judge Graham?
Yes, this case is set for hearing next week, October 12th and 13th. It's Evergy Missouri Metro and Evergy Missouri West. They've submitted an application for an order allowing the company to implement tariffs that enable a transportation electrification pilot program and the installation of additional electrical vehicle charging stations, the deferral of costs associated with the program, variances from related promotional practice rules, and an increase in the current caps on the number of Clean Charge Network electrical vehicle charging stations authorized in Evergy service records, and a finding that the expansion plans proposed are prudent from a decisional perspective. Evergy Missouri Metro operates primarily in the Kansas City metro area. Evergy Missouri West operates in the suburban Kansas City metro area, St. Joseph and surrounding counties. Tariffs operation of law, effective date is January 24th, 2022. As I stated to start with, this is set for a 2-day hybrid evidentiary hearing on October 12th and 13th, meaning that parties and witnesses may, some of them at their option, may participate virtually. Per a joint list of issues filed by the parties, we have 27 issues to be resolved, and the parties have identified 15 witnesses and 8 parties have filed position statements.
Okay.
So,
Are there any questions for the judges this time in advance of the hearing next week? All right, hearing none. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
Next week for that hearing. Next up in case discussion is file number WE 2021-0390. This is in the matter of a joint application of Missouri American Water Company and DCM Land LLC for a variance from the company's tariff provisions regarding the extension of company mains. Judge DePell's case, but I believe Judge Woodruff is covering today.
That is correct. This is not set for hearing. The parties asked that it basically submitted written arguments and so forth, and asked that the commission make a decision on it based on the submitted documents. The company, the developer asked that this be done as soon as possible because they want to start selling lots at the end of the month, end of October. There are really two issues here. Staff is opposing the proposed variance for 2 reasons. One being that they argue that the commission does not have authority to grant a variance to a tariff unless the tariff within its own terms authorizes that variance. And then also they oppose the requested variance on its merits. So this is just this is brought to the commission to get your views on what kind of order you'd like to see.
Okay. I do have a question, and I understand staff is here to answer questions. Okay. the first question that I have is regarding the difference between a 95-5 cost sharing and an 86-14 cost allocation. Whoever wants to tackle this, come on in. If you wouldn't mind taking a seat at the table so that the commissioners on the phone can hear as well. So there's a difference between the St. Louis service area and the rest of the state in cost allocation. I'm just wondering what the reason is for the difference. Do we know what the history of this, why the state is 86-14, but that one area is 95-5?
I may not be the one to speak to the history for that ratio. My apologies.
So, no problem.
This is Jim Bush. I don't know if I have a great answer.
Is it statutory?
No, it's not statutory. Basically, gosh, it was like 2011, about 10 years ago, Missouri American wanted to combine their tariffs into one tariff book, because at the time they had basically about 5 or 6 separate tariff books for the different service territories. So we had many meetings after a rate case with many stakeholders. And this was an issue that was debated amongst the different interveners. And you had interveners who were St. Louis County interveners, and interveners who were St. Joseph Joplin interveners. And this was the agreement that everybody could agree to. So it was basically a settlement. St. Louis County was its own company until the early 2000s, St. Louis County Water. And so that was their tariff. Missouri American had their other tariffs statewide. And so when we merged them together, that was the compromise that we had to go forward, that we would leave the St. Louis County tariff as is and the rest of the tariffs as they were. So it was no magic reason why, it was just an agreement. It was an agreement to come up to settle that case.
Okay. Well, that's the question that I have to kick off the discussion. So thank you for that, Jim. The first issue is whether or not we have jurisdiction. I think we do have jurisdiction, and I was persuaded by the argument that the previous case law predates the statutes that would govern that jurisdiction. So I'm going to say we do have jurisdiction. Commissioner Root?
I agree. We have jurisdiction.
Okay, Commissioner Coleman?
I'm in agreement with that also.
Okay, Commissioner Holtzman?
I agree on jurisdiction. Are we going to talk separately about the percentage, or do you want to have this comment related to that right now as well?
Yeah, no, I'm going to walk through the issues that need decided. We basically have two. So
yes.
This is the first.
Yes, on jurisdiction.
Okay. And Commissioner Kolkmeyer?
I also agree.
All right. So the next issue is supporting the extension of time from 120 days to 5 years. I also support granting the 120-day extension, especially since no party appeared to oppose it. I think everyone thought that was reasonable, and nobody thinks that you can build out that development in 120 days. So I support that extension as well. Commissioner Root?
I agree and support that extension.
And Commissioner Coleman?
I agree also and support the extension.
And Commissioner Holtzman?
I also support the extension.
And Commissioner Kolkmeyer?
And I do as well.
All right, and so that leaves us with the cost allocation. I'm going to support the 86-14 cost allocation. I think there's good cost for the variance. I think the development will improve fire safety resources and main access, and the increase in customer base as well is significant enough to the overall support of Missouri American's customers. And since the allocation split is not statutory and was by an agreement apparently over a decade ago, I think that can be changed at any time with the new agreement. And so I'm going to go 86-14. Commissioner Root?
I agree with the 86-14.
All right, Commissioner Coleman?
As do I. I agree.
Commissioner Holtzman? Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Coleman, did you have more?
No, I didn't. I'm sorry. I muted myself in the middle of talking,
All right.
so I'm good.
All right, just wanted to make sure I wasn't cutting you off. Commissioner
Thank you.
Holtzman?
Well, I am inclined to support the 8614 as well, with the caveat that I think that at this juncture, for the remainder of my time, I would also support an 8614. I think it's a little bit unequal that if you're a developer in one area because of an unwritten agreement that made 10 years ago, you're at 95.5, and then this variance is going through at 8614, which again, I'm inclined to support, but I think that pretty much signals that the 95.5 may not be the standard going forward. So I will support the 8614 with that caveat that I think that should be available to the entire state, not just a particular 10-year-old verbal agreement that is trying to be enforced.
Okay, fair enough. Commissioner Kolkmeyer?
Yes, I agree with the 8614, but I also am inclined to agree with Commissioner Holzman's comments on having one percentage statewide.
Okay. Well, that sounds like we have clear direction on this order. There were any outstanding questions that I missed, Judge?
No, I believe that covers it, and Judge DePello is planning on bringing an order back for next week.
All right, great. Thank you, Judge. All right, that concludes that case discussion. Next case discussion is file number GR 2021-0108. This is Spire's general rate case with Judge Hatcher. You've got the memo, Judge. You want to set us up?
We've decided to split this case and the memo discussion into two parts. So this memo covers 4 of the issues. This is issue 30, the WNAR and RNA, cash working capital, which is issue 8, net operating loss carryover, which is issue 16, and incentive compensation, which is issue 13. On the WNAR RNA issue, well, the decision for the commission boils down to whether to renew the WNAR that Spire currently has, authorize Spire's proposed RNA with any conditions, and to authorize staff's proposed RNA with any conditions. Did the chairman want me to go through more of the facts of the issue?
No, I think that lays out what the first position is that needs decided. So I'll start by saying I support the WNAR with the 60-day lead time as staff suggested, the 50 CCF for residential and 100 CCF for small general service, and as well the 6 modifications that were proposed by OPC. I believe that both the RNAs, the one proposed by staff and the one proposed by Spire, I see those as more of a revenue stabilization mechanism than a weather normalizing adjustment. And I think that the statute, 386-266, specifically says that those are to account for an impact on utility revenues, increases or decreases in residential and commercial customer usage due to variations in either weather, conservation, or both. And as I said, I think that those 2 RNA structures don't really fit that statute. For instance, if a gas customer were to switch usage from gas to electric on an appliance, the electric company under our current system could possibly get recovery through the MIA program if whatever they switch to fit under the MIA program. And under the RNAs proposed, the gas company could also get recovery from that as a gas conservation. So you basically have both companies getting recovery from the same customers for one action. And that leads to a double recovery. So that's what leads me to think that those RNAs are more of an actual revenue stabilization than a weather or conservation adjustment. So I personally, not necessarily opposed to a revenue stabilization mechanism, but I just don't think we have one as the statute reads. So I would suggest that if Spire wants an RNA, they request that specific authorization from the legislature to allow the commission to consider those in the future. So that's my position. Support the renewal of the WINR, but deny the RNAs for those reasons. Commissioner Root?
Yeah, I historically have been very supportive of renewable, RNAs. And so I'm struggling here on something that you've wanted to have implemented and you see the benefit for, and then is this the right spot to do it? I am going to go ahead and side with staff and their version of the RNA. I think that it does cover pretty much everything that what the statute says that it should. And yes, I think there might be a few small examples of like you had mentioned on a customer switching or something, but I think the amount of that is going to be so small and minuscule that it would not really be an issue. So given the opportunity to put an RNA in practice, I'm not going to let that opportunity pass me by. So I would agree with staff's position. However, if my viewpoint is not carried out, I would then default to, if we do approve the WNR, that we put in the 6 provisions that OPC has argued for.
Okay, fair enough. Commissioner Coleman?
Well, I do believe that we should renew the WNAR, and I am not feeling Spire's proposed RNA, so I'm a no on that, but I agree with the staff's proposed recommendations. So I am in agreement with staff-related position on the rest of it. And that includes OPC's proposed modification.
Commissioner, you're saying you agree with their proposed modifications, but you are a no on either of the RNA recommendations. Is that correct?
Yeah, I want to say that I support the staff's recommendation of the 60-day lead time, which I don't think anybody's brought up, but I think that was in the information. And also, I agree with staff where they agree with OPC's modification to the WNAR, if that's clearer than the mud that I discussed previously.
Very clear, Commissioner. Thank you.
All right. Commissioner Holzman. Thank you, Commissioner Coleman. Commissioner Holzman.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to support the chairman's position on this one.
Okay. Commissioner Kolkmeyer.
Sorry, I couldn't get off mute. Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to support your positions on both of these issues.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner. So that gets us through that issue. Next up is the cash working capital. Is that right, Judge?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the question for the commission boils down to how many days should the commission use in the calculation of Spire's cash working capital? Staff and Spire recommend 38 days. That's based on quarterly payments of income taxes. OPC recommends 365 days, and that is based on the fact that Spire has not made income tax payments during the test year.
Okay. So this one is fairly technical in accounting terms, but I think it's an interesting issue. So I'm going to agree with OPC on this one as well, with the 365-day calculation for taxes to calculate the cash working capital. And it really kind of, for me, it boils down to, I think the evidence is clear that Spire is not likely to actually have to pay taxes in the next few years due to their significant net operating loss carryover. So they're not actually going to be submitting these quarterly estimated payments to the IRS. And I also agree with OPC that although we're dealing with tax liability, it isn't a normalization issue when the tax payments haven't actually been paid in the recent past and are not likely to be paid again in the future. So that's where I am on that. And I think that the private letter ruling involving the Virginia State Corporation final order, that deals with the treatment of the aided and their income tax, CWC treatment. But I don't think that there was evidence to show that Virginia's treatment is comparable to how it would be handled with Spire in this situation. So that's where I am on that. Commissioner Root?
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly, Mr. Chairman. It came down to the fact to me is that they don't anticipate filing any tax liability, and so the 365 day from OPZ's position made the most sense for me. So I agree with your position.
Okay, Commissioner Coleman?
I agree also with your position.
Okay, Commissioner Holzman?
I support the chairman's position.
Commissioner Kolkmeyer?
I tend to go the opposite. However, and my reasoning is that I think there are some IRS rulings here and IRS rules for us to consider. However, so that's kind of where I am. I don't want to go against the IRS ruling. And correct me if I'm wrong. Is there not an IRS ruling in this?
Well, Judge, I think there's a private letter, but I think it's up to interpretation of each commissioner whether they think it applies directly to this case. And that's fine if you do. I don't necessarily think it does, but I mean, I can be wrong. So.
Okay.
Commissioner Kolkmeyer, this is Commissioner Root.
Yes.
I love it. I love the fact that you're bucking the first 4 votes. I think it's awesome that you're taking for what you believe in. Somebody that has lost 4-1 on hundreds and hundreds of cases and stuff. I'm just beaming with happiness over here.
I'm gonna support it.
All right. So that gets us through that issue. Let's see. The next issue, Judge.
The next issue, Mr. Chairman, is net operating loss carryover. And the question for the commission is, should Spire's net operating loss be included as an offset to reduce the amount of ADIT? ADIT stands for Accumulated Deferred Income Taxes. OPC puts forth an argument concerning, this is the 2 piles of money argument that OPC had in their brief, basically that Spire would be able to use the current income taxes paid as their interest-free loan from the Treasury instead of the net operating loss being added to the ADIT.
Okay. So on that issue, I'm going to support staff and Spire's position. I think that the evidence shows that how the net operating loss carry forward needs to be used to offset the accumulated deferred income tax and avoid an IRS normalization violation. So I'm going to go with staff and Spire on that. Commissioner Root?
I agree. I'm with staff and Spire.
Commissioner Coleman?
I'm with staff and Spire on that.
Commissioner Holzman?
Staff and Spire. Sounds like a new restaurant.
Commissioner Kolkmeyer, are you making a stand again?
No, not on this one. I'll go with staff and Spire.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner. So that brings us to the next issue, I believe, is should OPC's recommended tracker be ordered? that,
Yes, thank you.
I'm going to say no, because I don't think that there's a need to track. I don't think that the case is clear on how it should be treated, and I don't think that Public Counsel has shown how that tracker would even work. So I'm no on that tracker. Commissioner Root?
I agree with your position.
Commissioner Coleman?
I'm in agreement with that position.
Commissioner Holzman?
No tracking.
And Commissioner Kolkmeyer?
I'm with you on this one as well, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Next decision that I have is, should the cost of the AIP bonuses be included in base rate? Is that right, Judge?
Yes.
All right. Which specifically, if not at all? I'm going to say yes, except for corporate performance. Commissioner Root?
Yeah, I agree. Staff's position. We have a long history of including these, except for the the corporate performance, which falls on shareholders.
Okay, Commissioner Coleman?
I'm in agreement with your position, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Holzman?
I also support the chairman's position.
And Commissioner Kolkmeyer?
I do as well.
All right. And then the next one, which I believe is the last one, is should the two new AIP metrics that Spire implemented in 2018, utility contribution margin and utility adjusted O&M per customer, be included in base rates? I think yes, they should be used in the business unit performance, and I don't think anyone really opposed their use, if I remember that correctly. So, Commissioner Root?
Yeah, I agree.
And Commissioner Coleman?
I agree.
Commissioner Holzman?
I agree.
And Commissioner Kolkmeyer?
I do as well.
All right, Judge, I think unless I've missed something, that gets us everything we need for that portion of the conversation. We'll be back next week with more decisions.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Well, that concludes other discussion for today. As I mentioned, we do have need to go into closed session to discuss litigation under 610.021 sub 1. Before we get to that, I will talk about scheduling, so everyone is aware of what's coming up the next 30 days. Today through Friday, October 8th, we have the local public hearings in ER 2021-0240. This is Ameren's tariffs to adjust its revenues for electric service. That will be via WebEx with Judge Woodruff on the 6th at 6 p.m., on the 7th at noon, on the 7th also at 6 p.m., and on the 8th at 6 p.m. Friday, October 8th, we have a local public hearing in GR 2021-0241. That's Ameren's tariff to adjust its revenues for natural gas service. That will also be via WebEx with Judge Woodruff on the 8th at noon. Monday, again, the 11th, is a state holiday. Tuesday, October 12th through Wednesday, October 13th, we have an evidentiary hearing in ET 2021-0151. That's Evergy, Missouri West's application for approval of a TEP. That will be in room 310 and via WebEx at 9 a.m. with Judge Graham. Thursday, October 14th, we have agenda at 10:15 a.m. Again, that's Thursday agenda that week. And then we also have an evidentiary hearing in GC 2021-0395. That's Steins v. Liberty via WebEx at 9 a.m. with Judge Clark. Wednesday, October 20th, agenda at 2:15 p.m. with a USB meeting immediately following. That will be approximately 2:30, hopefully. Wednesday, October 27th, agenda at 10:15 a.m. and Wednesday, November 3rd, agenda at 10:15 a.m. So that gets us out for the next 30 days. Are there any comments, questions, or requests regarding scheduling for the next month? All right, hearing none, I will make a motion to go into closed session under section 610.021 sub 1 RISMO to discuss litigation. Is there a second?
Second by Root.
I second.
Seconded by Commissioner Root. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the motion to go into closed session under section 610.021 sub 1 say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
That motion is approved 5-0. We will go into closed session and adjourn immediately upon conclusion of the closed session. Commissioners, give us a second to make sure we get the line clear and we've cleared the room.